The tribunal chamber filled with the sound of rushing water. Ira watched through blurred vision as the Zomari elders activated the ancient punishment protocol, a cylindrical pit that would slowly fill with water, designed for species that couldn't swim, couldn't breathe underwater, couldn't survive what was coming. The human has violated Protocol 7, Elder Thas announced, his crystalline voice echoing off the chamber walls. She interfered with a natural predator-prey cycle. She saved younglings that were meant to perish. Ira's wrists burned against the restraints. She'd done exactly what they accused her of. 3 Zomari cubs, barely old enough to hunt, had wandered into a colony of Resh serpents. She'd heard their distress calls from her research station. What was she supposed to do? Let them die while she recorded data? The water reached her ankles. Cold. Merciless. Your species is soft, Elder Thas continued. You value individual lives over the strength of the species. This is why humans will never understand the Zomari way. Ira wanted to argue, but her throat was too tight. The water climbed to her knees. She'd studied the Zomari for 2 years, their bear-like physiology, their pack hierarchies, their brutal philosophy of survival. She'd respected their culture, followed their rules, until those cubs screamed. The water touched her waist. Through the transparent walls of the pit, she could see the observation deck. Dozens of Zomari adults watched with detached curiosity. But pressed against the glass, small faces with wide eyes, the cubs. Not just the 3 she'd saved, but others. Kiko, the smallest of the rescued trio, had his paws flat against the barrier. Mama Ira. She heard him call, using the term he'd adopted despite the elders' disapproval. Mama Ira swim. She almost laughed. If only it were that simple. The water reached her chest now, and her breath came in short gasps. Humans could swim, yes, but this pit was designed to be inescapable. Smooth walls, no handholds, and the water would rise until there was no air pocket left. We swim. Kiko's voice cracked with panic. We help. The cubs will remain in observation, Elder Thas declared. They must learn that weakness has consequences, that attachment to outsiders brings only pain. The water touched Ira's chin. She tilted her head back, gasping for the last precious inches of air. This was it. She'd traveled across 3 galaxies, survived first contact protocols, learned 17 alien languages, and she'd die because she couldn't ignore a child's scream. Worth it, she thought. Those cubs were alive. That had to count for something. The water covered her mouth, her nose. She took one final breath and closed her eyes. Then, chaos at a massive crack echoed through the chamber. Ira's eyes snapped open underwater to see the observation glass shattering. Small bodies poured through the opening. Not just 3 cubs, but dozens. They hit the water like furry missiles, their powerful limbs propelling them downward. Kiko reached her first. His teeth closed around her collar. Gentle, careful, the way a mother bear carried young. Other cubs grabbed her arms, her legs, her hair. They pulled, coordinated despite their youth. Despite the elders' roars of outrage above, Ira's lungs screamed for air. Black spots danced in her vision. But the cubs didn't stop. They hauled her upward, their combined strength overcoming the weight of her waterlogged clothes. Her head broke the surface and she gasped, choking on air and water simultaneously. Breach of order, Elder Thas bellowed. Return to your dens immediately. The cubs ignored him. They swam toward the shattered observation deck, pulling Ira with them. She tried to help, kicking weakly, but her limbs felt like lead. Kiko's grip on her collar never wavered. They reached the deck's edge. Older cubs who'd stayed behind reached down, small paws grasping, pulling. Ira tumbled onto the platform in a heap, coughing up water, shaking violently from cold and shock and desperate relief. Mama Ira, breathe, Kiko commanded, patting her back with more force than finesse. Breathe like we breathe. She did. Great, heaving gulps of air that burned her throat and felt like the sweetest thing she'd ever tasted. The chamber fell silent except for her breathing and the dripping water. Elder Thas stared at the scene, the shattered glass, the defiant cubs clustered protectively around the human, the water still rising uselessly in the empty pit. This is unprecedented, he said quietly. The cubs have chosen. Another elder, Mora, stepped forward. Her fur was silver with age, her eyes softer than Thas's. Perhaps, she said slowly, we have forgotten something important. And what is that? That's demanded. That before we were strong, we were young. Before we survived alone, we survived together. Mora looked at Ira, then at the cubs. The human saved our younglings not because she was weak, but because she was strong enough to act when action was needed. And now our younglings have saved her. They have shown us what we teach them, that the pack protects its own. She is not pack, Das growled. Kiko stood up, small body trembling, but voice steady. She is pack. She ran into serpent nest for us. She took bites for us. She is brave. She is strong. She is pack. A murmur ran through the adult Zomari. Ira watched, still shaking, as something shifted in the chamber. The other rescued cubs moved closer to Kiko, forming a line. Then more cubs joined them. And more. Elder Mora's mouth curved into what might have been a smile. The cubs have spoken. The pack has chosen. Do you challenge their wisdom, Thas? The old elder stared for a long moment. Then, slowly, he inclined his head. The pack has chosen, he repeated. The human lives. But she must understand, she is pack now. That means she follows pack law. She hunts with us. She raises our young. She is Zomari in all but form. Ira looked down at Kiko, at his earnest face and determined eyes. At the other cubs pressed against her, warming her with their body heat, protecting her the way she'd protected them. I understand, she said hoarsely. Pack law. Kiko chirped happily and burrowed into her arms. The other cubs piled on, and despite the trauma, despite the cold, despite everything, Ira found herself laughing that they'd tried to drown the human. The cubs had hauled her up to shore together. And in doing so, they'd taught an entire species something they'd forgotten. That sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is refuse to let go.